Yeah, so after I got done playing, like all players, I was dead set on I'm going to go play. I'm going to
Sure.
go play professionally, and I wasn't good enough first, right? But then I also hurt my knee, which made me worthless to
That's good.
anybody who was going to pay somebody to play basketball.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Coach Odom, Coach Odom's in Columbia at the time, and I talked to Coach Fogel, and they're both like, I think you should get into coaching. I wasn't thinking about coaching, but both of them told me that I should. And I'm thinking to myself, these guys are crazy. I don't want to coach basketball. I'm
Do they
22
know
years
me?
old. Like I should be playing still. But long story short, Larry Davis, who's the head coach at Furman, had just lost a GA, guy named JD Powell, who works at Charleston now. And Larry Davis had worked for Coach Odom at Wake Forest.
Oh, yeah. And then he went to work for Clem.
He says, yeah, so I know this guy who's looking for a GA. It'd be a good way to get your career started. I'm thinking to myself, first of all, I don't really want to coach. I certainly don't want to go coach at Furman. I didn't know.
The hedges are trimmed perfectly at Furman.
I go up there. Oh, absolutely. So I go up there to talk to Coach Davis about a GA spot now. This is about like grad assistant. And I still remember to the day him telling me, here's what the expectations are. You show up and you work as hard as you can. Show up before the coaches. You stay afterwards. If I ever hear that you're loyal, you're being disloyal, I'm going to have your office unpacked so fast you won't know what hit you. And I'm really excited now to go work for him.
Now I remember why I don't want to do
this. So I go take the job, and I'm there. We have some success. And Buzz Peterson, who had coached at Tennessee but played himself at North Carolina for Coach Fogler, gets fired at Tennessee. And he's going to take the Coastal Carolina job.
That's right.
And I eventually get hooked up with him. I go to Coastal Carolina. I don't know what I'm doing. And he sends me on the road, says, hey, go help us find some players. So I started recruiting then, tried to work at it. Meanwhile, tried to develop relationships with the guys. And I was there for 2 years with Buzz. And then Buzz got the itch to go work in the NBA.
With Michael.
Buzz's
Michael
best
took
friend.
over ownership.
Yeah. And there you go. Here I am learning the business of college basketball. If Buzz had gotten another college job, I feel comfortable that maybe he would have taken me on his staff. But there was no job for a 23-year-old in the NBA.
Yeah.
So Cliff Ellis comes in and Mike Young, who at Wofford I had played against when I was at South Carolina, had an opening on his staff. And so I go work for Mike. But in the interim, I got to know a guy, Tim Miles, through Nico Medved.
Yep.
Was interested in the Wilmington job. And I always loved Wilmington, North Carolina, because it was just up the road from Coastal. It was still on the beach and all that stuff. And just didn't work out, unfortunately. But I know you were putting together a rock star staff with Craig Smith and Nico Medved, two of the all-time great guys.
We were trying.
But I go to Wofford for a year. Mike Young's the head coach, and I have a great experience there. In fact, it was Steph Curry's sophomore year at Davidson when I was working for Mike Young at Wofford.
Same league back then.
Same league. I had the Davidson scout. And Mike Young and I laugh about this to this day, but we had convinced ourselves by the third time, this is in the conference tournament, that we had it figured out. We had the game plan to stop Steph Curry. And 35 points later, our season was over. And he was heading on to the Elite Eight with Davidson.
And they almost made it further than that. Oh my God. So yeah. Can I ask you just the secret sauce? What was the way to stop him that he only got 35 on you? Were you forcing him left or something crazy?
They were up 25 and Bob McKillop wanted to rest him for the semifinal game of the conference tournament.
I think that's how we held Jimmer Fredette to 40 one time when I was at Colorado State. Oh, my God.
Here's the best part, Tim. Here's the best part. The next year, I leave Mike Young's staff and go back to my alma mater. I'm working for Darren Horn at South Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
We have a good year. We actually win the SEC East. They had divisions at the time. But the SEC was down that year because Kentucky was down. You know how that works.
Mm-hmm.
So Kentucky's down. We beat them twice. We're not good enough to go to the tournament. So we get an NIT bid. That year, Steph came back for his junior year. He's at Davidson, and they don't win their conference tournament. So South Carolina and Davidson, about 2 hours away. They try to get some regional matchups.
Yep.
We had the kid Devin Downey, who was the player. I try to spend a full week because I've already experienced this, trying to convince the kids at South Carolina that this kid, Steph Curry, is going to be the best player on the court. And they're all looking at me like I've got 3 eyeballs. 38 points later, the season at South Carolina was over, and Davidson was moving on in the NIT.
And you held him to 38 only because it was 15 points, and McKillop wanted to rest him.
And they had to go to St. Mary's because they were going to play Patty Mills in 2 days, so he wanted to rest him for that game.
Yeah, that would have been a fun matchup to watch, huh? Think of that. So, Absolutely. Okay, South Carolina. Then does Frank come in with you? So Frank comes in after Darren.
So I was on Darren's staff. Yeah, I was on Darren's staff. We got fired after 4 years, just didn't win enough. Frank comes in from K-State. And I'd known Frank. Frank actually coached me at Nike All-American Camp in 1998.
Wow.
And so Frank knew me a little bit, and he knew I had ties to the state. I knew a lot about the recruiting landscape and stuff like that. And he just didn't have a position on the staff, though, because his whole staff came with him from K-State.
That's right.
But he did say, if you're willing to go in an administrative role, I can help you figure something out. My wife's pregnant at the time, and she's got a pretty good job. And so I stay in Columbia so we don't move. And that's how I met Brad, because he was on Frank's staff. And long story short, Frank doesn't have a great year, but Brad gets the Stephen F. Austin job a year later, and I go with him, and we win a bunch of games, and he leaves to go to Oklahoma State.
A bunch?
Try to get the Stephen F.
A bunch? Yeah, you won about 68 and lost about 4.
It was quite an experience. And Brad's a tremendous coach. He knows how to make adjustments in game. And when Brad left, I thought I was going to become the head coach at Stephen F. Austin. And it's funny how things that you want sometimes work against you in a way that you can't have enough appreciation for later.
You look pretty good.
Because if I had gotten the Stephen F. Austin job, I wouldn't be the head coach at Oklahoma State right now.
I was just going to say, you look a lot better in orange and black than you do purple. So I think you're doing just fine. So okay, let's talk about this. Brad leaves after 1 year, and he was a system guy, right? Total system guy. He's whether it be the force down stuff or the overpressure, deny, running the spread offense, the high post, Johnny Orr high post is what I call it. Very popular. So now you've got a bit of a conundrum, you decide to run it. And now as your recruiting though is getting a little better and a little better and a lot better. I mean, where you're 4 in the country nationally, that means, just so you know, that means like Michigan's behind you, Kentucky's behind you, UCLA's behind you. I mean, so when you're the 4th recruiting class in the country at Okie State, Texas is behind. Like there are a lot of teams that are, huge that are behind you. So now, how did you decide a style of play to fit these strong recruiting classes?
Well, the first thing I had to do to start was I had to try to prove that I could get kids to buy in. And you can't do that with a bunch of young guys, but the older guys were already conditioned to play a certain way. And so I had to make some concessions to try to keep our roster together to continue to play the way we had played. And so I did that my first year, but I started to put a plan together and how I wanted to play. But you also got to reconstruct the roster to get there.
Yeah.
And so the first year we didn't change a whole lot and we won. And then you start to have the turnover. But now, again, you're doing it with young guys. But now I've got people believing if you got good enough players, you can actually win. So maybe I'll get some time here. So the process of the next few years is now we got to really rebuild this roster, because if we get good players again, we can play the style we want. And that was 3 years in the making, and that was culminated in last year's recruiting class. And now we're playing a little bit more of a ball screen oriented offense, more freedom based. We're pressuring not quite as much, but we're still disruptive. And I really like the trajectory we got this program moving in right now.